Universal Casualty, Super Q,
los Miami Dolphins y tú rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Son los Dolphins, nuestros Miami Dolphins, el team número 1 en toda la nación. Y son ellos orgullo de Miami y de todos los latinos en la capital del sol. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Este año no me hablen de los Redskins, no me hablen de los Chargers, ni de los Dallas Cowboys, porque los Dolphins son número 1 y lo demostrarán al llegar al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Nuestra línea está mejor que nunca y nuestra defensiva fue siempre la mejor. Y es por eso que yo no tengo duda que los Miami Dolphins ganarán el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl.
Universal Casualty
Y Super Q, los primeros. Bueno, caballeros, todo el mundo que cante con nosotros. Dame una D, dame una O, dame una L, dame una P, una H, una I, una N, una S, que es lo que tenemos. Miami Dolphins. Me voy para el Super Bowl. 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 Me voy para el Super Bowl.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our heart. Baseball is mighty rough. Winning gets awful tough. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins.
Hello, 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 Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, sponsored by BetUS, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Aaron, are you ready?
Am I ready for what? Oh my God, he's drinking the Kool-Aid. What's that, like a 32 ounce?
That is a large
tumbler of Kool-Aid.
That is a large plastic cup full of Kool-Aid. I'm all in. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, baby. Dolphins win 42-38 over the Baltimore Ravens on the road on the back of an absolutely historic performance from Tua Tagovailoa, the performance that Dolphin fans have been waiting to see since he was drafted. The night that I went viral with my reaction to him being drafted, that was the performance that I was waiting for, and we finally got it, and it was awesome. It was one of those wins that as a Dolphin fan, you don't get a whole lot of moments like that. You really don't. I mean, the closest comparison I could think of is the Miami Miracle.
Right.
And the Miami Miracle was basically a meaningless win in the grand scheme of things. Now, it's possible that this could end up being a meaningless win in the grand scheme of things. But right now, in this moment, there is so much about this win that is really great. And we're going to get into it as we go through the show here today. But Brain, how you feeling?
I'm excited. This is a huge win. No matter how you slice it, this is a humongous victory. And, this makes the path. It's very early, obviously, but this makes the path to this team winning double-digit games, to this team making the playoffs. It makes the path very clear. And when you compare, especially when you look at, some of the other teams that you looked at as the Dolphins' competition to make the playoffs this year, which those teams will still be there. But when you looked at it, you said, all right, there's probably 4 teams in the AFC that are clearly better than Miami. And it would have been Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Chargers. And then most people would have also said the Baltimore Ravens. And for 3 quarters, they look pretty much right. And I'm not saying that Miami is necessarily better than Baltimore, but you just beat them. And so if Baltimore, for whatever reason, doesn't win that division and you're battling them for a wild card spot, you now own the head-to-head in there. In addition, it's a conference win, which is obviously really huge. But then you look at the other teams that you're probably going to be going up against, if you end up in a wild card race. The Denver Broncos look pretty bad right now. They're 1-1, but they look pretty bad. The Raiders don't look very impressive. The Indianapolis Colts look dreadful. The Bengals are 0-2. And so you have to look at this and feel really, really good about the Dolphins compared to those teams. And then when you remember the schedule and you say, well, even if the Dolphins were to lose the next 2 games, which right now you look at it and you say, well, I think the Dolphins have a really good chance of winning one of these next 2. But even if the Dolphins were to lose these next 2, you have that stretch of games of 7 games where the Dolphins are going to be favored in every single one. And even if they somehow lost 2 of them, you'd be sitting at 7-4 going into the last 6 games, really controlling your destiny. And if, God forbid, you won 6 out of 7 or won all 7, you'd be sitting pretty, not just jockeying for a playoff spot, but jockeying for a potential division win. That's how big this win was, and it really sets up the rest of their season well. But obviously it's early, but I'm excited. And, not just the big picture stuff as in, this is a big win and what it means potentially for this team going forward this season, but the excitement of having explosive weapons on offense is something that we have been dying to see in this organization since really the mid-90s. It's been almost 30 years, really, since we've seen this, because after the mid-90s, after that, Stoyanovich misses the kick and the Dolphins lose that heartbreaking playoff game to the Chargers. After that, the Dolphins really were dealing with a Marino that was past his prime and really started building on defense and trying to run the ball. And we've seen the same football game for the past 25 years. And this was different. It felt different.
It really did. It felt like it was, well, for a while, it felt like it was the same old Dolphins. And then suddenly it didn't. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. But first, a reminder to everybody, make sure you're following us on Twitter. I am at Amplified to Rock. He is at Aaron the Brain. That's at Aaron the Brain. The show is at Same Old Dolphins. We invite you to download, rate, review, and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere that you get your podcasts. Please give us a 5-star rating, leave us a positive review. We appreciate that. And of course, if you're watching live on YouTube or the I'm a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page, go ahead and like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Turn on the notifications bell so you're notified every single time that we go live or add a new piece of content. We got a lot coming your way. You already got a bonus show on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel earlier today with Mike sitting down with Orlando Azulgari to talk a little Miami Dolphins football. So they had a little Big O appearance on the YouTube. So all kinds of good stuff coming your way. And of course, make sure you're visiting dolphinstalk.com each and every day. It is your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. So you want to make sure that you're hitting it up multiple times a day, because as news breaks, as news develops, we're going to have new pieces coming up on the site on a regular basis. So Brain, this game, my goodness. So first half, the game starts off about as badly as it can with Devin Duvernay returning the opening kickoff for a 103-yard touchdown. That you can't get much worse than that. But then the Dolphins respond by moving the ball pretty well. And that was, I think, one of the early themes of the game, is that the Dolphins were actually moving the ball pretty well on offense, but Tua made a couple of mistakes in the first half that were costly. Obviously, the first interception, now I'm not going to put that squarely on him, although if the ball was maybe delivered with a little bit more zip, it's probably not the greatest decision to make that pass in the first place. If the ball has a little bit more zip on it, maybe it's not broken up, maybe it's not intercepted. Either way, that happens. That stunts things. And then the Dolphins get the big break on the ensuing possession, as they really make the big goal line stand, and then Baltimore turns the ball over, fumbling the snap on the 4th and goal. One of the more interesting stats from this game, Baltimore, I think the stat was, had 13 opportunities in this game with a third or fourth and 1 or goal to go. Right? Third, with only needing 1 yard to get a first down or a touchdown. They had 13 opportunities and succeeded on 3 of them in this game, which says maybe something about the Ravens, but also maybe something about the Dolphins' defensive front, which performed really well, and largely with the exception of giving up that 75-yard or 79-yard touchdown run by Lamar Jackson in the second half. Defensive front did a very good job actually shutting down the Ravens' running game. Not that the Ravens were, they were running out the corpse of Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis, but regardless, the Dolphins shut him down. But after the Dolphins get that stop at the goal line, they turn around, go 97 yards for the touchdown, and you're thinking, okay, we're in business here. But then the Ravens started to tear the Dolphins apart, and the defense was looking really, really bad. Throw in another bad decision by Tua, throwing an interception late in the half, and the Dolphins go in at halftime down 28-7, and it's the very, very typical same old Dolphins bad vibes going around, and that's how it felt. And you started to see it if you were on Twitter, if you were on social media. The vibes were bad. And a lot of people were just dumping on Tua like they typically typically happens. It was very much like we were seeing from Tua at this point, the very same thing that we had seen from him for the last year and a half. It was just kind of mediocre, had moments, been, just kind of meh of quarterback, lack of anything seemingly special. And you went out of your way, Brain, at halftime of this game. And you said, if you can't see that Tua ain't it, you're nothing but a Dolphins homer, is what you said at halftime of this game.
Yep.
Just talk to me about what you were feeling in that moment.
Well, like you said, I mean, we saw the same Tua. He was the same guy, which is you see accuracy, you see some anticipation, you see, the touch throws, you see when the first read is there, him putting the ball on the money, and that's all well and good. But then you also see the lack of arm strength costing you. You see the lack of arm strength. First off, not just the lack of arm strength, but then the questionable decision-making. And the questionable decision-making compounded by the fact that he doesn't have the arm to make up for it. He doesn't have a Brett Favre arm where Brett Favre can say, I don't care that that's double coverage, I'm going to fit it in there. Tua can't do that, but Tua continuously trying to do that, and then it ending up being a turnover. And these are the things that we've seen since frankly, we saw it in college, and we've seen it ever since he got the call to be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins. You see that when he gets into trouble, it's constantly he's trying to do too much. He's trying to force this, and he puts himself in bad situations. There weren't really any throws in that situation in the first half that were wow throws. So all you really saw were lack of arm strength, questionable decision making. And we've seen it enough times that eventually you just got to be like, look, this is who he is. And that's what I said. And I said what I said. But at the end of the day, look, I jinxed him. I did the reverse jinx. And if it's not for me sending out that tweet, who knows? Maybe Tua throws 2 more picks in the second half and we're in Skylar Thompson's season.
Oh, well, Tua saw your tweet. And
no,
he responded.
Didn't. He didn't see me, so he didn't care.
Well, listen. At any rate, the Dolphins come out in the second half and come right down, score a touchdown, and you go, okay, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something here. And then the ensuing drive, we get the Lamar Jackson touchdown, the big 79-yard touchdown run that puts the Ravens back up by 21 points. And at that point, you're just going, okay, I mean, you had to feel like that's got to be it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was no real sign that this defense. I mean, even when the Dolphins scored in the third quarter, it mostly felt like they were just kind of taking what Baltimore was giving them. Baltimore was playing in a shell. I did notice, and I did tweet this out, on that opening drive of the second half, that I thought that in spite of being down 21 points and only having 7 points on the board at that point in the game, I thought that the Dolphins were moving the ball really well. They were running the ball. They were getting chunk plays. And so I thought there was actually a lot to like from what they were doing offensively. They just didn't have the points to show for it. But you could already see that even with 7 points on the board at that point, you could see the difference in the play design and the scheme and just the creativity, that there's something to this offense, that they can move the football far better than they had in the previous years, really in a long time. Even with 7 points on the board, you kind of felt like they can move the ball, which was a nice thing to note. I still didn't think they had any chance of winning this game and coming back. And then when Lamar Jackson breaks off that run, like you said, yeah, I even tweeted at that point, and that, folks, is the ball game.
Yeah, I think I tweeted a good game, good effort at that point too, because that's what it felt like. And when you've been watching this team for as long as we have, it's kind of like you can feel when things are going the wrong way. Well, at least we thought. Then the Dolphins get the ball back, fourth quarter, goes 75 yards, capped off by a touchdown pass to River Craycraft. They go 2 minutes and 48 seconds worth of game time. They just go right down the field and score the touchdown. They then almost hold the Ravens to a 3-and-out, get the ball back, and then we get the first of the big ones, the first of the big bombs. Tua goes deep to Tyreek Hill for 48 yards, about a minute and a half of game time. I mean, unbelievable. Dolphins have scored the touchdown there to go within 7, and suddenly it's a game. And suddenly the defense comes up, stands up, does it again, and the Dolphins come down the field again. Tua finds Tyreek again, this time for 60 yards and the touchdown to tie the game. Losing my mind at this point. I think it was at that point, at the beginning of that drive, when I said the Dolphins were getting the ball back with an opportunity to tie the game. And this was the thing that was like, I was like, at this point, the fact that we even have gotten to the point where we're getting the ball back with an opportunity to tie the game is impressive in and of itself. So then the Dolphins they go down the field. It's very quick, 60-yard touchdown pass. Again, Tua to Tyreek Hill. Dolphins tie the game. Feeling really good at this point. And then we get a little bit of a same old Dolphins moment, because the Ravens then go right down the field and end up kicking a field goal with about 2.5 minutes left to play to go up by 3 points. And that's the moment where you're like, well, that's pretty same old Dolphins thing. The one thing that was a little bit different is that it wasn't at the very, very end of the game. They managed to stop Baltimore early enough to allow themselves some time to get the ball back. And then the Dolphins get the ball back, go downfield. I mean, and talk about the great play calling on this drive. I love how calm and collected the Dolphins were on this final drive, taking their time, not in a hurry. They knew they were playing to win the game. They had 2.5 minutes to win the game right here. And then if you, for whatever reason, can't win the game on this drive, you kick the field goal, but you're not giving Baltimore any time left. It was really, really great work here from Mike McDaniel. And I think my favorite moment of this is on a 2nd and 1 at the Baltimore 35 with time ticking off of the clock. The Dolphins take their time and then call a draw up the middle to Chase Edmonds for 28 yards. Just completely catching the Ravens off balance. That securely puts the Dolphins in field goal range. So you're feeling good at this point. But then we've got another opportunity here. We've got the next play. Tua throws the incomplete pass to Waddle. And then right after that is when he finds Jalen Waddle for 7 yards and the touchdown to put the Dolphins in the lead to stay 42-38 victory. And it was absolute madness. Brain, as you were watching Tua lead this team back, knowing that you had tweeted what you tweeted at halftime, what was going through your head?
Well, more than anything, like at the end of the day, we're all rooting for the Dolphins. We're all rooting for the same team. So I'm excited. I'm excited that we're coming back. My biggest takeaway in all of this, and here's the thing. You cannot take away, I'm not going to poop on anybody's parade about Tua and the game that he had, because that was an all-time great game. And an all-time great second half in particular. He was almost perfect in the second half of this football game. But I will say this. My biggest takeaway of this is not we found our franchise quarterback. My biggest takeaway of this is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are really, really good. And we have a head coach that knows how to use them. Because when you watch this, go back and watch those plays, and you tell me, where was the amazing throw by Tua? Where was the amazing play? Because you're not really going to see it. The closest thing to it is the spin move touchdown pass that he threw to River Craycraft, which is a great improvisational play.
I don't know. I think that touchdown pass he throws to Mike Gesicki at the beginning of the second half is a beauty.
I think it's a good throw. He throws it up in the middle and he lets his guy get it, which is fine. And I think that you look at the two bombs that he throws to Tyreek Hill. One, a horrific busted coverage where Tyreek Hill is the corner just basically lets him go and he's running for 30 yards unchecked. And then the other one is really a busted coverage again, because Tyreek Hill, whether you want to call it a busted coverage or whether you want to call it just Tyreek Hill being amazing, either way, Tyreek Hill gets about 10 yards of separation. Tua throws the ball up. It's a little bit underthrown, but it doesn't matter because it gets there. But at the end of the day, those plays, they're not amazing throws. What they are is Tyreek Hill is an elite wide receiver, and he made those plays happen. Now, does Tua need to get him the ball? Of course he needs to get him the ball. But any quarterback in the league really is not going to miss Tyreek Hill on those two throws. And that's my biggest takeaway out of this. And it's not necessarily a knock on Tua, because at the end of the day, you still need to consistently make the throws that are there. And that's what Tua did in the second half. Go back to the first half and the mistakes that he made. Go back to halftime and coming into the third quarter when you're watching the telecast and the sideline reporter comes out and says, we talked to Mike McDaniel, and what did Mike McDaniel say? We need to stop forcing things on offense. Tua just needs to play within himself and within the system, because at the end of the day, the scheme and the talent that is on this offensive side of the football is there, that Tua does not need to be great. Tua just needs to play within himself and not try to do too much. And Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert and Mike Gesicki and Chase Edmonds will take care of the rest. And that's what happened, because all he needs to do is play within himself. He doesn't need to be amazing. Numbers wise, he was amazing, but any quality game manager can do what Tua just did. And the challenge for Tua is not, can he somehow make these wow throws that we haven't seen? Because I got news for you. He's not going to do that. Like, it's just his arm talent is not going to somehow get appreciably better at any point in his career. He is who he is. But what he can do is consistently do what he did in the second half of this football game, which is play within himself, take what the defense gives him, and when there is a shot there, take it and make it. And that's what he did, and that's all he has to do. And if he does that, at the end of the day, his numbers will be great, and we can have another discussion at the end of the season when the Dolphins are, however the season ends up. If he keeps doing that, the offense is going to put up great numbers, but you could have another discussion as to whether or not that's worth paying him franchise quarterback money, considering, he's just a system quarterback. But at the end of the day, produce like that and we'll all be happy.
Oh, I mean, there is nothing like, I want to be clear. We're not taking anything away from Tua here. He delivered. He delivered the goods that he was asked to deliver,
100%.
and he delivered them in spades.
Outstanding game
on Sunday. It was an absolutely historic performance. It was absolutely magnificent, and nobody in their right mind is going to tell you otherwise. It was an absolutely fantastic performance, and in particular in that second half. It wasn't great in the first half, but that's almost what makes the second half even better. It's what makes the story even better, is that it wasn't a great first half, but the performance in the second half really, really was. So to review the final numbers, 36 of 50. And granted, the Dolphins would much prefer that Tua's not throwing the ball 50 times in a game. And I think everybody knows that. But still, 36 of 50, 469, 6 touchdowns, did have the 2 interceptions, a rating of 124.1. Just an absolutely fantastic game from Tua Tagovailoa, who becomes the story when on the other side of the game of the ball, you had Lamar Jackson throw 21 of 29 for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns himself. Plus, he also ran for a touchdown, including a 79-yard touchdown run. Ran the ball 9 times for 119 yards. I mean, this was a great performance, and it was really shaping up to be, the story of this game was shaping up to be Lamar Jackson, and the Baltimore Ravens bounced back from that game against the Dolphins last year on Thursday Night Football on national television. And as you said going into this game, the Ravens, knowing that they had made a plan for the Dolphins to bring that zero blitz and to bring the pressure, you said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And the Ravens did have a plan, and their plan worked. So then it was the Dolphins who got punched in the mouth, and the Dolphins responded. Tua responded, and it was awesome. That is the kind of performance, the grit, the fact that they turned that game around. Whether you want to give all of the credit to Tua, or you want to give all the credit to Mike McDaniel, or you want to give the credit to the offensive line that we need to talk about still, you want to talk about Raheem Mostert, who had a great game on Sunday, whoever you want to give the credit to, the fact of the matter is this Dolphins team picked themselves up and turned it around in this second half when they were down 21 points in the fourth quarter, to turn around in the fourth quarter, right? Tua threw 4 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter. That is huge. And it speaks to the job that the head coach is doing, and it speaks to the belief that the players have in one another and in the system. And that is gold. And it is something that this dysfunctional franchise has been lacking for so long. And to see it all come together in the way that it did on Sunday in that second half is really, really special. And it's really a moment to savor and enjoy. So I just, and here's the other thing. You'll have people who want to try to detract a little bit from it by saying, oh, the Ravens blew coverage. Oh, they made coverage errors. And yes, they did. But you know what? That's part of the design from the Dolphins' perspective. When you've got the kind of speed that the Dolphins are running out there, that's bound to happen. Right? I saw people detracting from the quarterback and detracting from the offense because, here comes the yards after catch and here comes the blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you can't knock the yards after catch when that's the design.
Right.
That's the system. That's the proof that everything is working the way it's supposed to when Tua throws the ball in a place where the receiver can catch it and make something happen afterwards. That's called playing complementary football, letting everything inform what everything else is doing. And so that was really great. So I think there is no doubt about it. It was absolutely a tough, gritty, resilient win for this Miami Dolphins team. And as you mentioned at the beginning, it may very well end up being a huge victory when we get to the end of the season and the Dolphins find themselves in the thick of a playoff race, whether it's for the AFC East crown, whether it's for a wild card spot, whatever it is. That, I have a feeling, could end up being one of those games that the Dolphins have lost so many times that this time around they found a way to win. And that is really great. Bran, there's a lot of compliments to go around. And one of the things that I just touched on, one of the keys to this game for me was that the Dolphins needed to be able to run the ball efficiently. And they did that in this game. They did that. They ran the ball. They didn't run it that much. They only ran it 18 times for 86 yards, but averaging almost 5 yards a carry. And granted, they got the boost on that 28-yard draw to Chase Edmonds late in the game. But, Brain, we saw some signs that the Dolphins were able to run the ball. And the other part of it was that this offensive line had themselves a pretty decent game. And I know that Austin Jackson's got 3 more weeks on injured reserve at least. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the Dolphins might as well just take their time with Austin Jackson coming back because they've got their right tackle in there right now in Greg Little.
Yeah, and Greg Little played really well, and that was really good to see because he did struggle last week when he came in. And there's been questions about the Dolphins swing tackle. I still think Austin Jackson is more dynamic and gives you a little bit more, particularly in the running game, than Greg Little does. But if Greg Little can hold down that spot on the line, then I think this offensive line has a chance to be solid. Now, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit as far as, being able to run the football. The Ravens gave up a lot on the ground. The Jets ran the ball pretty effectively against them as well. So the thing that, look, I'm excited. That was a great game, and I'm not going to take anything away from the Dolphins offense in this performance, but we're still early in the season and we don't have a lot to go on. So it's hard to really jump to sweeping conclusions, because how do you know that this Dolphins offense, is really great based on 42 points against the Ravens versus what they did last week against the Patriots, which they were pretty bad for the vast majority of the game. Now, is it because the Patriots are a better defense than Baltimore? I would venture to say yes. I would also say it's not a coincidence that Baltimore had a bunch of breakdowns in the secondary when we talked all week about how they had, their top 4 guys in their secondary either out or questionable, not practicing. 2 guys, 2 of the 4 ended up playing, and one of them hadn't played in a game in over a year. So was it a huge shock that Baltimore, who was a bad secondary last year and had injuries in their secondary this year, blew some coverages? No, it's not a huge shock, but you have to take that into consideration when you're evaluating things. If you're looking at this, be excited. Today's not the day to poop on anybody's parade, but at the same time, let's not go overboard. Now, if we do that against Buffalo next week, yeah, there will be people that say, well, Tre'Davious White didn't play. But but Buffalo, with or without Tre'Davious White, if we can do that, then we're golden. And I'll feel really confident. But I'm not ready to just all of a sudden crown this Dolphins offense because they had one great game against Baltimore. But I'll say this, they definitely are coming together. You definitely see the offensive line making strides. You see the game plan coming together, the scheme coming together, the route tree, the play design. And as long as they can play within themselves and keep making progress, there is a lot to be excited about on that side of the football. On the other side of the football, there's a lot of question marks.
There are a lot of questions, and that's one of the weird things right now, because as you look ahead to Buffalo next week, and we're not going there yet. We're going to talk about Buffalo later this week when we get to that game. But right now, as we're sitting here and we're looking back at this Ravens game, listen, as excited as you are that the Dolphins won, and as well as the Dolphins defense adjusted in the second half, there were some problems in that first half that made you go, what are we doing here? Now, it was nice to see Boyer make those adjustments, and the defense made their adjustments, and we really mostly bottled the Ravens up in the second half, with the exception of the big Lamar Jackson run. And that's one of those unique things, that Lamar Jackson is just one of those special kind of players. And, when that happens, that happens. You sort of accept it. But, for the most part, you still got to worry about the fact that the Dolphins gave up 38 points in this game, because that ain't great. And you gave up 38 points to a Baltimore Ravens team that, Lamar Jackson is what Lamar Jackson is. He's a special player, but otherwise, they've got Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in the game. And then they've got some speedy receivers in Bateman and Duvernay, but this is not a Baltimore Ravens offense that on paper should be lighting you up the way that they did. And so that is a little concerning. And I think we saw, particularly in this game, particularly in the first half of this game, we saw the Dolphins missing Byron Jones's presence out there.
Yeah, well, and not just Byron Jones's presence, but let's face it, X had a really awful game. I mean, he could have made it a lot better if he comes up with that interception, which looked like a pick six. But I mean, he got complete, like, the whole idea of the zero blitz and the man coverage, is because you can trust your corners on the outside. And if you're going to do that, the one spot that we would have been concerned about would have been the opposite corner. So for X to give up a free release to Rashad Bateman and let him go for a 75-yard touchdown, that's huge. I mean, things played out in Miami's favor, but if things don't play out in Miami's favor and they end up losing that football game, even if they made it close, you'd go back and you'd look at that and say that was one of the biggest plays of the game. That was one of the biggest reasons we lost, is because of X having a bad game. He also had, I think it was an illegal contact or a hold at some point in a crucial moment. It was a rough game for Xavier Howard. Now, I'm not overly concerned about Xavier Howard because we've seen him have moments like this in the past. And at the end of the day, like, that the guy is going to make plays when it matters most. And he'll get those things shored up. But I'm concerned about, giving up the big play to Lamar Jackson. I'm concerned about, the fact that we came into this game and Baltimore completely moved the ball at will. And, like, if not for a goal line stand, a fumble by Lamar Jackson, like, we could have been down 35-7 at halftime. The defense was awful for the vast majority of the game. And did they come up big in goal line stand situations, 1 yard to go? Yeah, and that's big. I'm not going to discount that, because those are huge moments in the game that if they don't do that, the Dolphins don't win this football game. But at the same time, if this defense takes a significant step back, this team isn't going to be where it wants to go. Because as much as we're happy and excited about the offense being great, if this defense is not the top 10 defense that we all hope that it will be, then the Dolphins are going to lose some games that you expect them to win. They're going to lose some games down the stretch because the defense isn't good enough. And I think there are legitimate question marks. Look, one of the big question marks going into the season was, what does this Dolphins defense look like when they play a good offense, when they play a really good quarterback? I don't know that Mac Jones qualifies as that. I mean, they've played Mac Jones 3 times now, going back to last year, and he's had some decent moments, but it's not like the Patriots have ever carved them up. But any other quarterback that is legitimately good, the Dolphins defense has been absolutely roasted. And you have to question, look, the Dolphins defensive, resurgence last year came on the back of a stretch of games against bad quarterbacks. It also happened to coincide with their current defensive coordinator, Josh Boyer, losing his play calling duties. And now he's back to being the defensive play caller.
Allegedly.
Okay, I believe it.
I'm just saying. Yeah,
allegedly. And here we are in this game. And one wrinkle that I really liked that the Dolphins threw out there was that playing 5 defensive backs, like 15 yards off the ball, just in a straight line. And then the offense doesn't know who's coming up to press, who's dropping back further in coverage. And I thought that was a really nice wrinkle. But we'd given up 35 points before that wrinkle came out of the playbook. Like, what are you holding on to that for? Like, what the hell are you holding on to that for? Because if not for Tua throwing 6 touchdown passes, we're losing the game because you're holding on to this thing until we're down 35-14. So I have my question marks about Josh Boyer. I have my question marks about this defense. There's still a lot of things. There's a lot of football to be played. We're still going to find out a lot more answers to this football team. But I'll say this. They've won 2 games in 2 distinctly different fashions, which we have not seen. This was a Dolphins team that had a clear formula to how they could win. You run the ball, you play defense, you protect the football. For the Dolphins to lose the turnover battle and give up 38 points and still win on the strength of their quarterback throwing 6 touchdown passes. I haven't seen a game like this since Marino.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think anybody has. I mean, that was the thing that was so astounding about it. And that was one of the things that was remarkable, is that we just have not, the Dolphins have not had that kind of performance consistently in the second half to dig themselves back into a game like that. It's just not something that has happened. And I think that's why you've got so many people now like myself sitting here drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Because it's something that we've waited a really long time for, and to see it and to get it, to have it benefit our team is something that I think is really rewarding, and it feels good, and it makes you really want to believe that you can expect that week in and week out, that kind of consistent control and performance. Now, let's be real now, right? And this is not to denigrate anything. Nobody's taken anything away from anything that the Dolphins did in this game. But that is 1 week, 1 game, 1 moment in time. There are 15 games left in this regular season. What is great to know is that that kind of performance is something that Tua does have in his locker. And it does seem to feel like Mike McDaniel might just have the key to unlocking Tua and letting him play comfortably within himself so that he can reach his fullest potential, right? So that's good to know that we have that. And that is something that the Dolphins are now capable of delivering on any given Sunday. The question is now, is that something that we will see and continue to see as the season goes on? That's the next question, right? I am not going to say anything, a negative word to any of those people who are part of the TUAnon or whatever, who have been the true believers, who have said, come hell or high water, that this is their guy and that he's going to be the guy and that he is the man and all of this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to say anything against you because you kind of earned that performance, right? That is something that you believed was possible and it happened, right? Terrific. And you're going around and you're giving, you're shoving it in the face of Aaron the Brain and anybody else who was saying that this was not the guy, right? I mean, I even said at halftime of this game, I was like, ask yourself right now how confident you feel that your quarterback is going to lead you back to the victory, and ask yourself if you would feel more confident if it was any number of other quarterbacks in the league. That's what I tweeted. And then, I got that in my face. I'll take the L on that. I don't care. Fine. Give me the L. Fine. But I think what we now need to see, as you're hanging your hats on that performance, which is great, let's hang our hat on 15 more performances like that. Let's hang our hat on that performance happening consistently. Because I can tell you what, if in the remaining 15 games, we get 3 or 4 performances that are that kind of quarterback and the rest of them are mediocre, I don't know what to make of that.
I'd be pretty happy if he gets 3 or 4 more performances like that and the rest of them are just mediocre, then we're a playoff team. I mean, that's fine. The key thing is it's going to be consistency, and it's not about consistently throwing 6 touchdowns and 500 yards, because that's not going to happen. That's just not sustainable.
Realistic. That's not something that anybody does.
And there's a lot of factors as to why that happened, and not all of them are the things that the Dolphins did well. It's a lot of, whenever you throw 6 touchdown passes, part of the reason for that is because the defense played poorly. Like, you have to at least accept that.
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah,
most of the time.
You put up 42 points. It's not like the opposing defense played a great game. But it's not about him consistently putting up monster numbers. It's about him consistently making the right play and not trying to do too much and not pressing, because and that the biggest thing that I hope that Tua takes out of this is knowing that he didn't. Like, if you look at the throws that he made, it's not like he had to make any wow throws to make this happen. All he had to do was play within himself and within the structure of the offense, and everything worked out. So he just needs to trust the coaches, needs to trust the talented receivers that he has, and he just needs to keep playing within himself and understand his ability, the throws he's capable of making, and make the smart play. If he does that, the Dolphins offense is going to be good.
Yeah. So let's see what happens from here on out, and let's hope that this defense can get it together, because it's that's going to be the thing, right? We all figured the offense was going to take steps forward this year. We all felt that as soon as they brought in Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson. I mean, you felt it kind of when they brought in Cedric Wilson, then they brought in Tyreek Hill, and it's like, for sure. And then they brought in Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds. Yes, this offense is going to take steps forward, right? That we knew that was going to happen. But part of the deal about the Dolphins making it deep into the season was that the defense could not take big steps backwards. The defense had to stay, just about as productive. I mean, if they were going to take a little bit of a step backwards, that'd probably be okay, but you couldn't take big steps backwards. And that performance defensively on Sunday was reminiscent of the kind of football we saw that defense play early in the season last year. And that is not something that I think we want to see too much more of. And, you were able to pull out a big comeback against Baltimore on the road week 2. You don't want to constantly be putting yourself in position to come back from 21 points down, because next week the Buffalo Bills are coming to town, and they're the team that looks every bit of the Super Bowl contender that everybody believes them to be this season. And so you're going to have your hands full with that one. Sure, it's a short week. Sure, they're coming to Miami. They're going to play in the heat. But that hasn't really stopped them before running all over the Dolphins. So you're gonna have your hands full. That's another big test. First game was one test. This game against the Raiders was a larger test. And now this test against Buffalo is even larger still. And this is the real measuring stick here. Now you're really going to get a sense of how the Dolphins match up against a legit Super Bowl contender. And, let's see. We're riding high at the moment. We deserve it. It was a great win. Everybody's feeling good, and enjoy it for another day. But then we got to come back down to earth, and we got to realize that we got some real competition here. And now, if you get to Sunday, you beat the Bills. If you beat the Bills, look out. Because then you're 3-0 out of the stretch where both you and I predicted the Dolphins started 1-3. They're already better than that. So they're playing with house money for the next 2 weeks, baby.
Yeah, and I mean, that Bengals game is looking very, very winnable. I mean, even at the beginning of the season, like going in like that I think I felt like was a 50-50 game. But now I'm feeling, even though it's on the road, I feel more than a 50-50 game. I still am not terribly confident going into this Buffalo game. Buffalo looks very legit. And if we fall behind by 3 scores against Buffalo, I don't think that we're coming back and winning, because I think Buffalo is just a different kind of beast, a different kind of animal. But if we somehow, like, if we can hang around, like, and it's a close game and you're in Miami and Buffalo starts to wilt, like, I mean, is it going to shock anybody if Josh Allen throws a couple of picks? It wouldn't shock me. So if Miami can just play within themselves, there is a formula there where Miami can beat Buffalo. And if they can manage to do it, I mean, if this team's 3-0, I might break out the Kool-Aid next week.
Oh my, there it is. Okay, so that's it. We all love the Dolphins, which is reason enough to cheer for the Dolphins to beat the Bills on Sunday. But next Monday, we could be right here with Aaron the Brain drinking the Kool-Aid live on the air. And that,
maybe
that would be really something special. Listen, our good friend Patrick Mullen changed his avatar to Tua. He was one of the most outspoken Tua critics on social media. And
Okay, go ahead.
He said that if at one point, I can't remember where the game was when he said it, but he said if the Dolphins pull it out and they win, he would change his avatar to Tua. He's done it.
I want to take you because here's the thing. Like, even if like we can beat Buffalo, like if we beat Buffalo next week and we're 3-0, like this team's going to make the playoffs. So like, I feel inclined, like if we beat Buffalo, that I'm going to break out the Kool-Aid, but it would feel very, very wrong of me to break out the Kool-Aid three games into the season after a 3-0 start, because how many times have we been there?
Oh, sure.
But just to take you behind the scenes, right before we started recording this show, we were talking about how excited we were, and Josh lets out. He goes, it doesn't get any better than this. and that is where we're at as a franchise, that we just won a game to go 2-0. And Josh is like, it doesn't get any better than this.
I mean, we're Dolphin fans.
It literally, look, if we get blown out by Buffalo next week and then we're in a dogfight the rest of the season, the truth is, it might not get better than
You're
this.
right. You're right. It might not. Not to be negative Nancy, but it might not. It might not. But right now we're here and we're enjoying it, as everybody should, because that was a truly awesome, memorable game. And I think it has the possibility of being one of those landmark games for the Miami Dolphins. We live in an age where everybody's memory is kind of short, where everybody is kind of living in, like, nobody's memory lasts more than a couple of years. And so there's like almost a desperation to make things take on more importance than they actually deserve in any given moment. But really, when you look at where this team has been for the past 2 decades, and you look at that performance, if this team can stay on track and can build off of that win on Sunday, and that performance from their quarterback, and that performance from the receivers and the running backs and the offensive line and the second half defense, partially, if they can build off of that, Sunday's game has the possibility of being that really kind of important moment in Miami Dolphins history. But as with everything else, it was one game, and it was one moment in time, and soon you got to turn the page and move on to the next one, because the vibes are good right now, but you're not going to beat the Buffalo Bills with your good vibes. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully this team comes out. Look, at the end of the day, whether you're a Tua truther, whether you are a Tua hater, whether you think the Dolphins are the same old Dolphins, whether you think the Dolphins are a playoff team, whether you think this is a legit contender, if you are a fan of the Miami Dolphins and you want this team to be good, I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. I'm not going to tell you that you're too negative or you're too positive. Do you? But it feels really good and really exciting right now after that game on Sunday, and you should enjoy it for the rest of this week. You should be excited about the matchup against Buffalo, because if we had lost this game, you'd feel a completely different feeling going into this Buffalo game. And there's a lot more excitement about it now, and it's going to be talked about. It's probably going to be one of the bigger games on TV on Sunday. Get ready for the hype. Now, can this team answer now that they have the national media's attention? Because now they have the national media's attention.
It's true. And you know who the leading passer is in the NFL in yardage coming into Monday Night Football?
Is it Tua or is it Joe Flacco?
It is Tua Tagovailoa. Leads the NFL in passing yards with 739 passing yards through 2 games. Can you guess who second and third are on the list?
I know Joe Flacco's been throwing like 50 passes a game. Is he like
Joe Flacco is third on the list.
And
Do you
who's
know
number
who is
2?
second on the list?
Who's number 2?
Give us a guess. Come on. You
I
won't
don't
get
know.
it.
I'm drawing a blank.
It's Carson Wentz with 650 yards.
Well, if that doesn't make you feel a lot worse about what Tua just put up in the first 2 games, to know that the other 2 quarterbacks that are in the top 3 in yardage are Carson Wentz and Joe Flacco, I don't know what's gonna take you off of your high horse.
Do you know who the top 2 receivers in receiving yards are in the National Football League right now? After coming into Monday Night Football?
I would guess it's probably Tyreek and Jalen Waddle.
Tyreek Hill with 284, Jalen Waddle with 240. Third place, Cooper Kupp, 236. That'd make you feel pretty good, yeah?
That I feel good about. We have elite wide receivers, and Tyreek Hill is a difference maker.
The Dolphins also broke a big streak on Sunday, breaking a streak of 576 consecutive games where a team trailing by 21 or more points entering the fourth quarter had lost. The Dolphins turned that around, ending that streak at 576 straight games by being the team to come into the fourth quarter down 21 and turn it around and get the win. That's the kind of thing that makes you feel good. You don't like being down by 21 points at any one point in time, but turning it around and getting the win, you like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't come back from 21 points without being down by 21 points.
Right. So you'd much prefer not to be down 21 points, but either way, big win. We feel good about it. I think everybody should feel good about it. Enjoy your Kool-Aid. Here's some Kool-Aid. Slancha, L'chaim.
I'm still on water. Show me another week, Tua. Make me bring out the Kool-Aid.
The Bills, halfway through the third quarter of their second game of the season, the Bills just punted for the first time. And Tennessee muffed the return, and the Bills recovered the fumble. So the Bills have punted once and haven't lost possession yet. So wild times. But maybe they'll punt next week against the Dolphins, and Javon Holland will be a bit more sure-handed.
I would hope so.
That's
on
my
both
big
counts.
That's my one hot take for next week for next week's game is that the Dolphins will make the Bills punt at least once. It's my hot take.
It's scorching.
Thank you very much. I do what I can. All right. I think that's going to wrap us up. Brain, any parting words for the people?
No, I think I said it all. Look, Tua gets his credit. It was a really good game. He just needs to keep doing what he needs. He needs to keep being himself, playing within the system, and the offense is going to be all right. The weapons are there. I believe in the coaching staff and everything that they're doing. Hopefully this defense can right the ship a little bit. Because if they do, and the offense can put it together, for a second week in a row, then next week could be a lot of fun.
It sure could, and that's what I'm hoping for. But right now, I'm going to enjoy this, and we will be back with our regular Thursday show, although it may be a little bit later than usual, but it will be on Thursday night this week. At least that's the plan as of now, to get back to our regular schedule. Enjoy it, Dolphin fans. This is a good one. You've waited a long time for something like this, so absolutely enjoy every last second of it. And when all is said and done, we will meet you back here to preview the Buffalo Bills game later this week. But as always, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will talk to you again next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Go Dolphins!
Tua for MVP.